All right. Welcome to the very first ever Dirty 30 podcast. All right. I'm your host, Matt Frang. I'm going by the Fantasy Football Shrink. And I'm here with co host Devin Butler and co host Christian Lauber. So we created this podcast to really follow our home league, right? I mean, our home league is filled with our best friends. It's chaotic. It's awesome. It's filled with a bunch of trades, and the group chat is always going, right? So we're just kind of adding to it, right? We felt like a podcast would just add to the chaos. It'd add to the competitiveness. It would add to like the communication, right? I mean, this league is filled with 10 people that we love, that is just filled with a bunch of football guys, and they're good at it. So I think it's just going to be a fun little addition to the league this year. Anything you guys feel like you need to add about why we did this, why we came up with it?
No, I mean, you pretty much nailed it on the head. Just a bunch of buds, and we've been at this league for a long time, at each other's throats for a long time, and this is kind of like a new thing. And I'm kind of excited to see where we go with it, and how it gets perceived, I guess. But yeah, I love it. I think this is a great idea. I'm looking forward to it.
Definitely. Christian, anything?
Yeah, I think it's a good way to fill the time leading up to the draft, kind of build a little excitement here and there, and just kind of get people talking. That's the best way to create the chaos that this league always brings. So
and our plan is to do like a weekly 10-minute podcast, 15-minute podcast, just to kind of update everyone and just kind of update everyone with the chaos. So going right into it, like, we're probably going to talk a little bit league news and then a little bit of topics of the day, right? So our first topic is the league news. We did change our trade deadline, right? Previously, we never had a trade deadline. A lot of conversation over the years. We decided to move that up to a week 12 trade deadline. Our league is 2 keepers, right? We had a little bit of miscommunication, a little bit of chaos last year, and we just decided to kind of move that thing up to week 12. Anyone feel like they need to add anything to that?
Oh,
No. Sounds good. Sounds good.
it was the right move. It was the right move.
Right. It benefited the league, right? Yeah, I mean, we'll just kind of leave it at that. So there's kind of loophole last year, and yeah, we'll just kind of, it was the right move, that's for sure. So our topic of the day, right, is something that Christian actually did last year, kind of solo, right? He decided to put everyone's keepers in ranked order, right? 1 to 20, right? So he got a little pushback last year. This year we decided to add to it, right? Just to kind of see where the league thinks they're at. Not only did Christian do his ranks, but so did Devin and so did I. And we're going to kind of talk about where some similarities lay, where some differences lay as well. So let me kind of share my screen here. We'll get to our ranks. All right. So as you can kind of see, I mean, a lot of similarities really through like the first 5, and then kind of also like the bottom 5 as well. It's kind of this thing that stuck out to me. But just tell me like some general thoughts that you guys had, while doing these ranks. Anything that kind of pops up?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, as you can see, it's pretty clear cut with everybody having Jefferson at the top, which is why, I think I was so high on Craig's side of that trade with Marcus. Not saying Marcus didn't get a good return as well, because he did, but I think Craig put himself in the best spot, and consensus, I think even throughout the league, everybody would agree that Jefferson's probably the number 1 keeper at that value. When I saw the other rankings, I was a little surprised at a few. I was surprised to see Matt have CeeDee Lamb as low as he did. I knew I would get a little. I knew I would be a little different having Fournette as low as I did, but I'm buying the whole Lacy 2.0 kind of deal. He got his ring, and he kind of maybe is just going to fall off, and you're going to see someone else take over there. But, I think it's just, there's so much that goes into ranking these keepers where, I didn't like putting Najee as low as I did because I love Najee Harris. But if you're keeping a guy where he would typically go, it's just hard for me to put a lot of value in it.
Sure.
And I know I'm a lot lower on ETN than a lot of people, but that's just because I think that, at best, he's probably going to have a James Robinson type year, but maybe with a little more pass catching upside. But I just don't see that offense really being that big of a threat. I know the 14th round, you can't go wrong. I'm not saying that he shouldn't keep him. I think compared to everybody else, I think you're getting a much better player out of everybody else where, and I think obviously at the bottom, Antonio Gibson seemed like a very clear 20th, dead last place. No disrespect, but I truly believe that was, I still think that one might not be kept.
And I agree, right? Consensus Jefferson at the top, consensus Gibson at the bottom. Dev, what do you think? What stands out about these lists?
Yeah, I mean, Christian nailed, I don't want to dog on my own boy, my own keeper, but you nailed it on the head. That's why I put him as low too, because I love him this year, but I'm getting him in the first round and right around where he's going. So that's kind of with some of these guys, how I interpret some of this, even with, ETN and maybe even Akers, I do have them up higher on the list, but that's because they're getting him in the 14th round. I mean, those are just, that just seemed to bode well for me, even though I like guys like Eckler and Mixon or even McCaffrey better, and I have them lower. But let's see here. I actually had Fournette up higher, and then looking at the list, I was just like, what am I doing here? I don't hate him this year or anything like that, but I had him up a few spots, and I was just like, JT in the second, Diggs in the fifth, that's just maybe I just rushed my rankings originally, I guess, but I did see that we had Waddle what did I have on there? Yeah, Waddle and Swift between the three of us, right in the mid range there. I think we were all pretty similar on that, so I thought that was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think the thing that played most into me and knowing this league as well is positional value, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where running backs are just have more value in this league than wide receiver, right? I mean, every league, right? But especially this one, right? Where everyone has two running backs by the third round, right? I mean, it just happens, right? Josh Jacobs gets overdrafted year after year in our league, right? So having Eckler higher than Russia, having guys like McCaffrey higher than the rest of you, I mean, that just kind of made sense to me. I mean, Eckler he was lights out last year, so I don't know how he isn't a top 5 keeper again this year. I mean,
yeah, I had him just short of the top 5. I mean, I feel like, and I know Dev's kind of here with me, but Diggs, I was shocked to see Diggs as low on your list, Matt, because Diggs he arguably has the number one fantasy quarterback. Mm-hmm. He's going to catch a ton of balls. He's their number one red zone threat, him and Dawson Knox, as long as Gabe Davis doesn't live up to all the Twitter hype. Mm-hmm. But I mean, Diggs, I just feel like you got to assume he's going to be at least a top 7, 8 fantasy receiver at his floor, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I definitely got him ranked that way. It just kind of, that's how my ranks worked out. I mean, I got Diggs as a top 5 wide receiver this year. I mean, I don't know. I just couldn't fit him in anywhere better. I don't know.
Same with Lamb then too, because I mean,
Lamb is more of a prove it guy for me. I mean, he's never done it, right?
Right.
He really hasn't. I mean, he hasn't done it yet. I understand Cooper's gone and he's supposed to take this leap, but what if he has the same year as last year? He's okay, but he isn't top 7 wide receiver worthy. I'm lower on him in my ranks as well. So,
and I would highly invite anybody watching this to give their rankings, because I'd just be curious to see, I mean, it's fun to see what people value, what they don't, like
Absolutely.
Debo, it honest to God, if Debo didn't have all like the contract stuff and there wasn't so much uncertainty, I would have probably had Debo maybe 3 or 4, like you have him, Matt.
Right.
I just don't know what to think of him right now. I mean, regardless, he's good value, obviously, but
Yeah,
that offense, you just don't know. And McDaniel left, and then Lance is coming in, which could be good, but
Mhm.
they used him in so many different roles, probably because Jimmy was limited. Are they going to use him in such a versatile way when Lance doesn't really have those limitations?
Yeah. No, you're right. We got to move on here a little bit, but who has the best keepers in your guys' opinion, and then who has the worst? I want to hear both. I have my own thoughts, but I'll hear from someone else first. Best
Go
keeper,
ahead.
uh,
best keepers are pretty consensus in my book, but
yeah. I mean, I had Marcus and Krog, so I
Marcus
mean,
and Craig both with the best keepers.
I would, hmm, I would lean Marcus probably.
Me too.
I mean, I think Craig's right there.
Yep, me too. Those are the top two. I had Marcus number one. Yeah, and then I didn't even think of a number two, but Craig's probably number two.
They were pretty close from you, so that's why I put both of them
See,
down.
see, I look at Marcus's keepers, and I think as far as value goes, which is what keeper really ranks off of, right? You rank a keeper as value, which Marcus, I would say, has the best value. But I'm not going to lie. I'm going to step up and I'm going to say I have the best players. I have the top running back, the top receiver, and the top tight end, all for the taking, and I can only keep 2 of them.
Mhm. I got you. I got you three for sure. I'm with you, buddy.
I don't know what I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Worst.
Tight ends are boring.
It is very boring.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
It is very boring, but I have a very strong opinion on who has the worst.
Okay, let's hear it, buddy. Go right into it.
I mean, isn't it obvious? I mean, are we all under the agreement that anybody keeping Antonio Gibson has to be the worst? You can't get past that.
He wasn't going to be my name just because I have Eckler so high.
I do
Oh.
love Eckler. I do love him. Getting him in second is a gem. But
You know-
I had Tanner as my first too. I
Yeah.
kind of agree that just Gibson was on the bottom, and I don't know, just kind of.
I mean, if I'm going off rankings, like it really would be Tyler. No offense, Tyler, but he has my 18th and 19th ranked keeper.
Yeah.
So it probably would be Tyler over Tanner, just because you are getting an elite stud in Eckler. But Tyler has an early pick. He could make something of his draft,
Well, for
especially with a guy like Higgins and Etienne.
worst keepers doesn't mean that you're going to have a shitty season, right?
No.
Obviously,
No.
Tyler was obviously my name, and I think you guys are being awfully nice to my keepers. I was also going to throw myself in there as well.
I like Waddle too much.
Michael Thomas is
have-
very,
I'm
very,
sure on Michael
very
guys.
wild card.
But I love Waddle, so
Yeah.
You also have 200 catches between the two guys in the 9th and 10th round. Like that's a lot of and playing in a PPR league, that's a lot of catches.
Right. Well, and then so I had Tyler, myself, and then my third name was going to be Rodemacher. This with Mixon in the second, Swift in the third. You're kind of pigeonholed to like who is that wide receiver that you're really gonna get if Cup gets thrown back, obvious, but like
Sure.
in the fourth round, who's your wide receiver one?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I do like I said, I like the players. I like Swift has grown on me a ton, especially all the research I'm doing. Like
Nothing
if
against the players.
if Swift got thrown back in the draft, I would legitimately consider him at number 1 overall with Derrick Henry. I would consider that.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, you really put a stronghold on yourself, because who would you take at 2? Are you going to take Dalvin and then start your team with 3 stud running backs? But
Right.
then your receiver is going to be God knows.
Jerry
God
Jeudy.
knows what. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver 1. Yeah. So that's just kind of my thought there was, hey, me and Tyler is going to be like a very deep team, right? With Higgins in the 7th and ETN in the 14th and my keeper just super deep, but like not a lot of studs. And Rhodey's going to be a couple studs and not very deep, So
I'm
Sure.
curious what he does with his first pick. That should be interesting.
it will be.
Yeah, he could go Adams. I mean, he could do a lot of different things.
You could. We got to kind of wrap things up here. Any final thoughts about our keeper list before I kind of stop sharing my screen?
Nope. Good luck.
Yeah.
So,
And Dirk needs to get his keeper in.
right. So we definitely went off of him keeping CMC. We don't know that for sure yet, right? But it's just it's what we're thinking. So hopefully you guys like this podcast. I mean, we're bringing it out once a week. Next week we're thinking of grading the offseason trade grades. And my other topic was, hey, is the number 1 pick, Christian's pick, truly available? And if so, for what? All right,
A
Christian?
couple people already know. So
You got to think about it, buddy. So, all right. Well, this is the end of the first episode. I hope everyone liked it, and we'll be back next week.
all right, thanks.